Okay, we'll go ahead and get started. Hello and welcome to our Living and Dining at Bentley Falcon live chat. My name is Jillian McVeigh. I'm a program coordinator in the Office of New Student Programs here at Bentley, and I'm joined today with some of my colleagues from the Residential Center. I wanted to thank you for taking some time out of your day today to join us. We'll be spending the next hour or so discussing information regarding housing and dining on Bentley's campus, as well as providing you all an opportunity for a live question and answer at the end. So throughout the presentation, please feel free to utilize that Q&A button at the bottom of your screen to ask any questions that may come up. We'll also be recording today's session, and that'll be available for you to review at a later date and time via our YouTube channel, which you can access through our website. And for those of you who may be watching the pre-recorded live chat, please feel free to direct any of your questions that you may have to the email address or phone number, which will be listed at the end of this chat. So thank you again for joining us today, and we'll get started with some introductions. I actually have another member of the New Student Programs team here, one of our student coordinators. So I will go ahead and let him introduce himself.
Thank you so much. Hi all, my name is Aiden McBride. I'm a junior accountancy student, and I'm one of New Student Programs student coordinators, and I'm going to provide some student perspective for tonight's event. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you, Aiden. As Aiden had mentioned, if you have any questions regarding the student experience, he will be happy to answer those for you at the end of the presentation. Once again, just utilize that Q&A feature at the bottom of the screen, and we'll get those questions answered for you. Now I'll turn it over to our residential staff to go ahead and introduce themselves, and then we can get started with our content on living and dining at Bentley.
Wonderful. Thanks, Jill. Thanks, Aiden and Alex as well. And thanks all of you for joining us tonight. My name is Justin Woodard. I am the Associate Director in the Residential Center, and happy to join you with my colleague, Jeff.
Hello, everyone. My name is Jeff Funk. I am the Assistant Director of Housing Operations in the Residential Center, and also thrilled to be here tonight.
Yeah. Oh, Alex, over to you.
And I'll round out the Res Center team. Alex Matos. I'm a Residence Director in the Residential Center, and I oversee upperclassmen buildings.
So we've got a short little grouping of slides for all of you to hopefully walk you through some perspective on, living on campus, and really sort of pinpointing, and Jeff will really help us with this as our main guru who oversees all of our housing and ops. But some of the specific items that we'll need all new and incoming students to complete prior to their arrival in August. But really our goal is to leave some time, probably the majority of the time at the end of this presentation, for you all to be able to ask questions of us. So if we didn't answer it, don't worry. And particularly if we can't get you a direct answer today, we'll leave that email up and we're happy to. I think the nice thing about working at a small school like Bentley, we'll find you the answer if we don't have it. So we'll get through about 11 slides of content, and then we'll open it up to all of you to see what's on your mind. All righty. So you heard a little about who we are, so you can skip right on over, and I'll throw it over to Jeff.
Yeah, so as Justin mentioned, we really want this to be a seminar that's full of engagement, right? A time for you to ask a lot of questions at the end. So as he mentioned, we're going to use a little bit of time to provide some background. We'll also give you specific information about the specific residence halls and living options that are available to incoming students, and the sort of processes that go on over the summer in order for us to be able to accommodate everyone. And so just a small overview of living on campus. Our goal is to create a safe, civil, and inclusive community for all of our community members. We develop our communities to have a purpose and to be open and just. Every individual on our campus is an important participant in helping our community develop to its highest potential. And so we're really, really excited, especially after a year that was certainly strange and unusual, especially from a residential standpoint, to welcome our incoming class of Falcons and to really build some great community in the upcoming year.
So we thought it was important to, make sure all of if, parents, families, if there are a couple incoming students on the call, we wanted you to know we really do think there is a point to living on campus, something that differentiates the experience from, say, commuting. Really living on campus, we kind of have these three priorities or goals that we hope as a result of living on for 4 years. We really hope and work with our 98 resident assistants who are student staff and Alex and the rest of our team to help students develop a sense of self. So that is, in year 1 and 2 and on into the remainder of their time, figuring out a little bit more about who you are, what you value, what your identities look like. We do believe that college is a time to explore and, dabble in different things. I think, college has a lot of opportunities, clubs, organizations, ways to get involved within the hall. So that is one of our main priorities. Is in 4 years, we want students leaving, walking across that graduation stage, having a real good sense of who I am and what I'm contributing to the world. The second piece that we really value is building connections. So I think we are, sometimes I like to think we're a perfect size campus. So we're not so small that you walk everywhere and see everyone but we're not so large that you can never find a familiar face on campus. A big goal for us as a result of living in the halls is we want to help students build connections with other students on campus. That may be their roommates, that might not be, that there might be somebody down the hall, it might be somebody in a different building, but really one of our big questions, particularly as students are onboarding in their first year, is what are you getting involved in? What are your social connections looking like? I think we worry sometimes when folks stick to themselves or stick to their rooms. We want to get them out, get you to explore different experiences. And so I think it really is a mission of ours that, again, at that graduation stage, are you leaving with some lifelong friends that will follow you on into future years? That's really important to us. And then the last one is belonging to a community. So in 4 years, as a result of living in the halls, did you feel a sense of belonging here? That is a mission we have. So regardless of your background, where you're coming from, if your high school experience was fantastic, or if your high school experience was maybe really challenging, if you're worried about sending your student off to a new school by themselves, we want you to know that one of our main priorities is ensuring that students feel a sense of belonging on campus. And we really strive, I think, every day to bring that about.
So we want to tell you a little bit about the sort of levels and variety of support that we have available on campus for our residential students. So we have every either building or group of buildings. In the case of the first year residence halls, each specific residence hall has its own residence director. And this is a full-time professional master's level staff member who oversees the day-to-day operations of that building. So Alex, who was with us a few moments ago, is one of our residence directors for a group of upperclassmen apartment buildings, but each of the first year buildings has their own specific residence director. They actually live in the building that they work in, so they live here full-time as well as work here. And so they're a really great resource. So obviously each student each floor has a resident assistant who is a student staff member who is there to build community and develop those connections with students. But beyond that, they always have the professional staff whose sole focus is being there to provide that support. Including after hours, right? If there is any need for, which I see is a little further down in the slide as well, we do have staff on call 24/7 for support. So we've got a resident assistant, which again is a student staff member who is on duty every single night while the semesters are in session. In addition to that, we do have a rotation of the residence director directors, who we call administrators on duty. They are also always available 24/7 after hours for any sort of support that's needed. Beyond the residence directors, they report to one of the assistant directors, which I'm an assistant director. So we, the four of us on our AD team, also live on campus. So there are many levels of support on campus for our students, obviously during business hours, but also after hours. So we want everyone to rest assured that we have that support and care in place. In addition, we have a wonderful university police staff who are also here 24/7 to provide support, and we have a blue light system on campus. So if a student would ever, need immediate support, it's set up that from virtually any point on campus, you should be able to see one of the blue lights, and those fixtures have a call box on them to call university police. Additionally, something that happens during the orientation process is we encourage students, save that university police number in your phone, just to have it in case you need it. They're a great resource as well.
So a little bit more about our resident assistants who we really love. So we've got about 98 of them. So like Jeff referenced, they are all typically returning students, upperclassmen, either sophomores, juniors, or seniors, who applied to the role because they had an interest in being able to help grow and build community on floors, help students through difficult experiences. We hire a lot of students who may have struggled themselves in their first year, and as a result of kind of overcoming any of their struggles, personal or academic, they realize, wow, there's something I can really give back to the community, and I have a passion to do it. So we've got 98 of them. They're returners. Really in the first year area, a lot of what they'll do in the fall semester is help explain policies, procedures, understand and acclimate towards the expectations we have on campus. I would say we have, I think, a good blend. I've seen some schools that are really strict in terms of policies and some that are awfully liberal. I think we found a good balance in being able to appreciate the fact that, these students are young adults coming to campus for their first time, and we want to allow them to experience life like that. But there are quiet hours that go into effect to allow for the academic environment to flourish. They go a little later on the weekends, again, to give credence to the fact that folks might be a little bit more social. We do allow alcohol on campus in rooms where students are 21 plus, but typically in the first year area buildings, it is not allowed. Students are not able to carry, open containers or things like that around campus. That is really the primary focus of our resident assistants who serve on duty each evening. They do rounds usually every hour to ensure that folks are doing okay, to be able to be a visible presence. So they're not always just cracking down on policy. They're there to be visible in the community so that somebody knows that I can go to somebody after hours. They have offices that they'll sit in when they're not on active rounds. So we really, again, try to uphold the fact that, life doesn't happen just during 8 to 5. It doesn't happen during class periods. Oftentimes, I think the bulk of a student's life is happening outside of classes, and we need to build systems to be able to support that. So you'll see they serve on duty. They have a phone, and phone numbers are posted all around the building. So every area, we have about 8 areas. Each one of them has a different on-duty cell phone. So they typically are in the office from about 7:30 to midnight. And then on the weekends, they're there until actually 2 a.m. And then when they're not in the office, they have the phone. They're expected to pick it up for something as maybe minor as I'm locked out of my room to something more serious, like I, cut my finger while prepping dinner. I need some help. Can you get me in touch with university police? They'll do a whole host of things. Let's see here. And I think the other, outside of sort of the policy enforcement piece, really their main role is to develop communities. So both on an individual and group level, from the individual perspective, we expect our RAs are checking in with every single one of their residents, specifically one-on-one every month. Typically, it's far more frequent than that, but at the minimum, you're expected to set up an opportunity, a moment, really a half hour, a lunch, something like that, to check in individually with each one of your residents to see how they're doing, what resources you might need to connect them to. And then from the group setting, they're in charge of doing programs throughout the hall. So sometimes it might be a program specific to your floor. At times it might be a program for, that a couple of the RAs are putting on for the entire building. It can range from purely social engagement programs to academic laden programs. So bringing in faculty to talk about research interests that they're working on, doing hosting films, movie nights, things like that. So we really kind of run the gamut of what students are interested in. I think every floor might be a little bit different in terms of what they're looking for out of their first year experience. You'll see, I think that the big thing, and we hire specifically when we're looking at our RA recruitment, we look at specifically placing RAs within the first year area who are ready to work with first year students. We know that our upper class students sometimes are a bit more self-sufficient, to be honest, and sometimes our first year students, they've got a lot of these frequently asked questions. What do I do if I'm not fitting in? I'm not feeling well. I'm really stressed out in GB 112. And I think the benefit to hiring, specifically looking at, we've got about 40 RAs who live within the first year area. The ratio is typically about 1 RA to every maybe 25 students. So we try to really keep it small within the first year area so that RAs can be pretty attentive to the needs of residents, again, during the day and even after hours they're living within the communities. Our expectation is that they know their communities, they know who's doing really well, they know who might be struggling or who's a little homesick, and we expect them to follow up on that. They're in constant communication, as Jeff kind of alluded to earlier, with their supervisor, one of our residence directors. So if maybe, what a student might be dealing with is a little higher level than what a student staff member can work with, they bump it up to one of our professional staff members who can jump in to help. So really it's about scaffolding a good approach to ensure that, none of our residents are falling through the cracks, that they've got support really at every juncture.
Okay, so now talking about the specific residence halls, which is something that I know the students get very excited about because it's, the tangible aspect of living on campus. So we do have 3 wonderful first year residence halls, all of which offer virtually the same amenities. There are a few differences that we'll get to in a moment, but those 3 buildings are Slade Hall, Miller Hall, and the Trees Complex. And the Trees Complex is actually, it's all connected as one building, but it's sort of set up as 7 smaller buildings all sort of connected together, which is why it's a complex. And as you'll see on the slide there, Slade and Miller both house about 250 students each, whereas the Trees Complex houses around 520 students throughout the building. So it is a much larger building, but accordingly, there are more resident assistants in Trees, so it still maintains a similar ratio of RA to resident, whereas like Slade and Miller each have, I believe, 9 RAs. The Trees Complex has 18 or 19, so that the students are still getting that same level of individualization and support. Most of our first year residence halls are double occupancy, meaning 2 students to a room. All of our residence halls for the first year students are set up in a traditional hall style where students have a room, but then the floor that they live on shares a communal bathroom. So we do not have suites or apartments available to our first year students. However, all of our returning students, so sophomore through senior, they all get to live in a suite or apartment. As I mentioned, there are mostly double bedrooms. We do have a limited number of triple bedrooms and a limited number of single bedrooms throughout the first year residence halls. In the application, the housing application that we'll talk about a few slides later, students are able to preference their top room type options, but again, we cannot always guarantee that everybody who preferences a single as their first option is going to get it, because unfortunately there just are a limited number, and we can't always accommodate that. But we do our best, and we look at individual requests and whatnot. And then there are some processes related to medical and religious accommodations as well that we'll talk about a little later in this presentation. As I mentioned, common bathrooms shared amongst residents on the floor. Every one of these buildings also has a common kitchen on one of the floors that students can use if they want to cook a meal. Students are allowed to bring microwaves and mini fridges for their individual rooms, but anything beyond that, they would need to use the communal kitchen. Every one of our buildings has a laundry room. They are, the laundry does come at a cost, but it's actually, it's neat because they are able to use an app on their phone where they actually will upload funds for laundry and sort of connect their phone to the machine and start their laundry that way, so they don't have to be counting out quarters like I know many of us did when we were in college, and having to lug that bag of quarters around with you. So we do have the laundry rooms and then lounge spaces as well in all of our buildings, all of which actually feature new furniture, which is great. It's a wonderful communal space, both for students to get out of their room if they want to study, but also to spend time with friends and to build that community with other folks in their residence hall. It's a really great sort of meeting space. And in some of, actually all of these buildings have a lounge space attached directly to the common kitchen as well. So sort of bringing all of that together. Something else that's not on the site is we have vending machines in all these buildings as well. Something that students also like to know about. And you can view more information about all of these residence halls on our website. And I believe starting last year, we actually have a virtual walkthrough of the different room options. And so you can see right there, bentley.edu/housing tour will take you directly to the virtual walkthrough. It's a great opportunity to sort of be able to go, and you can actually click into it and sort of turn within the space and see what a standard residence hall room looks like. And yeah, I'll talk through a little bit more about preferencing those options and whatnot when we get to the application.
Awesome. So, and Jeff will talk more about this, and we're happy to answer some questions at the end of the presentation, but we do have some defined community living options throughout the first year buildings. So not within trees, but within Miller and Slade, we have 3 communities in each building that are really theme-based communities. So if you have a student who is coming to Bentley who say was really into maybe fine art or performance art in high school or extracurricular activities, we have a community of folks from all over the artistic spectrum who have preference to live together. So there's an opportunity. You do not have to preference to live within one of the defined communities. And you also have the ability to preference up to 2. So if you are really interested in living within the arts community and would also be interested, say, in Blueprint, which is one of our leadership development communities, you can preference both, and we will do everything we can to minimally make sure we accommodate you in one of them. Space is limited throughout the communities. As you can imagine, we hire RAs who have specific interests, and so we reserve them to a specific floor or section of the floor so that they can work with that RA who has specific interests in doing designing programming opportunities that meet the needs of that specialty area. We have far more information online. So if you're looking to know a little bit more about each of the communities, Blueprint really is our leadership development. Thrive is our sort of holistic wellness community. So folks who are really maybe athletic or really into nutrition, you know, or really into mindfulness. So folks who are just really considering that. Herstory, so female identifying students who are coming to campus who are interested in leadership development within the business world, the arts community, which I talked about, and Brave, our social justice community. So say that you are really have a student who is really engaged in social justice efforts in high school. This can be a pretty lively community we've had a lot of great success with. And then the honors community. So if you happen to be a member of the honors program, so that is the one caveat with that community, you do have to be accepted within the honors program already. Now that community cannot house all honors students, but I would say I think roughly a little over about 50 students select to live there. We have plenty of honors students within the first year area who choose not to live within the community full of honors students and like to live, you know, elsewhere to develop different, you know, communities to lean on throughout the first year. So again, if folks are interested, certainly not something you have to preference, but I think these are great. They connect you with campus partners. So we bring in folks from the academic sphere, from student affairs, to partner with these communities to post programs. I think this is a really easy way to get involved immediately once you step foot on campus. We have an early arrival program, so students who are accepted into one of the defined communities actually arrive a day early to campus to do some leadership development, some community building, and acclimate a little bit before the remainder of first-year students move on to campus. So check out the website for more specific details on each community. And again, we're happy to answer some questions at the end if folks have them.
Okay, so as we've alluded to throughout this presentation, I want to talk specifically about the process for students to apply for housing. So we sent this information out originally to all incoming first year and transfer students on May 26th, and it is all due a week from today, actually, next Wednesday, the 23rd. So if you are a parent, if your student has not yet completed these forms that I'm about to talk about, please encourage them to get those done by the deadline next week so that we can ensure that we can have a place for them in housing. So we have an online housing portal that students have access to using the same credentials that they use to log into their Bentley email and other Bentley accounts. And again, the emails that we've sent to students have all of this information, so they should be checking there, and those emails are sent specifically to their Bentley email addresses. And so students first and foremost should get in the habit of regularly checking their Bentley email account, as not only our office, but also other offices on campus will be sending important information and processes to that email. So the first step is for the students to log into their housing portal. And the first thing they need to do in there is they need to sign the housing and meal plan contract, which is the contract stating that they agree to the terms and conditions of living in housing. And it is really the first step for us to be able to assign them to housing for next year. Part of that is also agreeing to the meal plan, which Justin will talk about a little bit later. And for our students who are currently under the age of 18, it will actually not allow them to electronically sign it. It will require them to download a copy for their parent or guardian to sign and then send in to us, just because it is a legal document. So we do require the signer to be 18 or over. Once students either electronically sign that or the parent or guardian sends it into us via email or fax, and all of that is at the bottom of the contract when they download it. Once that is completed, then the student will have access to the housing application. So the contract is really just the agreement to the terms of living in housing, as well as asking for some information such as cell phone number and emergency contact information. The housing application that they'll fill out as the second step is where they get to indicate their preferences in terms of housing, and also some preferences of their daily life that will help us match them with a potential roommate. And so I think that's part, the contract is the part in the student's mind that is necessary, got to get through that. And then the application is really where they get to make it a little more personalized. So the first thing that the housing application asks is for their top 2 room type preferences. And again, we have 3 room types: singles, doubles, and triples. And so students can pick their top 2 of those. And again, we do our best to accommodate, to match as many of those preferences as possible. And then we require students to fill out certain fields that will help us match them with a potential roommate. So even if a student knows another incoming student that they want to live with, that's great. I'll actually talk about how they can specifically request each other in a moment. But even if they plan on doing that, we still ask them, it's still required that they fill out this preference information just so that we have it on file. And that it will ask things such as, what time do you typically get up in the morning? What time do you stay up late? Or what time do you go to bed? Many of which will answer staying up late. And then things such as, do you keep your room tidier or messier? Do you like the room warmer or cooler? Just basic everyday lifestyle things that really have been shown through pretty much decades of research to be the things that really make good roommates. And I want to be clear that while we do allow students to request specific roommates if they know someone else who's coming in, and that's wonderful, and we encourage that if they know someone, students should absolutely not feel left out if they don't know another incoming Bentley student. The large majority of students do not request someone specific. and are simply matched based on the information that they put in the housing application. And that is perfectly normal, and is based on, again, lots of research into what makes a good roommate pairing. And also some questions, not only is it lifestyle in terms of what time do you go to bed and things like that, but also some questions about what do you like to do with your free time, and all multiple choice, right? So that we can match things, but some options to try to personalize it a bit to make those best matches. So that's in the application as well. And then the final part of the application is where students can sign up or request to live in a defined community, as Justin mentioned. So at the end of the page of questions in the application, there is a question that asks if they're interested in living in a defined community. If they click no, they won't see the supplemental defined community questions. I hope many of them are interested and click yes, that they'd like to live in a defined community. And then that will present them with another set of questions that will ask them first, which defined community are they interested in? Students can list up to 2. So if a student really wants to be in a certain community, but also would be fine if they, if we exceed capacity on one community, they're also interested in another. So they can select both of those, or 2 of those rather. And along with that, we will ask them to upload just a small essay response to a question about why they're interested and what experiences they have that would contribute to that community. And I believe we ask them to cap those at no more than 250 words. They are short statements of their interest, but the software that we use doesn't allow them to actually type that in, so they need to upload that as a document. The instructions are in there. It's super simple. They save it as like a Word document, and they attach it right in their application. So they will be required to do that in order to apply. But again, it's not a big lift. It's not a long essay. We just love to hear, their experiences and the context behind why they're interested. So all of that is in the application. All of these things are due next Wednesday by 4 p.m. Eastern time on June 23rd. Students can submit the application, today, and go back and edit it, right? They want to change something. They think, I said I like to stay, or I like to wake up early, but in practice, maybe I don't. Maybe I want to change that, and say I wake up at another time, because I personally love to think that, I'm a morning person. And then in practice, not always. So if students, do change something, or they say, I'm not going to apply for a defined community, and then they later decide, what, that sounds really great, I'm going to do that. Up until next Wednesday, the 23rd, they can log back in, click on the application again, and it will let them upload or update their responses. So once we have all of that next week, it will take us about a month to process through all of that and assign folks to the defined communities, and then also come up with the specific housing assignments. So in late July, we will communicate each student's housing assignment to them via email, to their Bentley email address. And that will also include their roommate's name as well as their roommate's Bentley email address, so that they can get in contact with them. I know that that is something that students really look forward to. That was something I was really excited and anxious about going into my first year of college. Is getting that roommate information and the room. So rest assured that will come out in late July, and give students some time to connect with their potential roommate before the school year starts. So down here at the bottom, a couple things. First is how to request an actual roommate. So it must, or a specific roommate, it must be a mutual request, meaning if I want to live with Justin, I need to request Justin, but Justin also needs to confirm that he's requesting me. And there's actually a separate module in our housing portal. And again, all of this information, including step-by-step instructions for requesting a roommate, are in the emails that we've sent out to students. But basically, there's a spot where you can log in. You can search by name of other people in the incoming class. So I would search Justin's name, find him, click request, and then Justin will actually get an email that says, oh, Jeff has requested you as a roommate. To confirm this, please log in and click accept. And then that's all Justin needs to do. And then we'll get confirmation emails when that's accepted. And at that point, there is nothing else to do in terms of requesting a roommate. But again, totally not necessary, and the majority of students do not know someone else coming in, and that is totally normal. Two other quick things. One is our housing and meal plan, medical and religious accommodation process. So we have a process in place for students who have a medical or religious need for specific housing accommodations. And that is a separate sort of form. Students who do choose to petition for that still must complete the contract and the application. They must do all of the standard things, but then there's a separate form which is referenced and linked in the emails and is available on our website. And part of that is completing a very simple form, stating that they are in need of an accommodation. And with that, they must attach a self-written letter, so a letter that they write explaining either their medical need or their religious need. And then the third component of that is they must attach documentation from either a medical provider or a clergy person, depending, on the nature of the accommodation. So all of that, again, is in the email and on our website. And one final note is that all of our residence halls offer gender inclusive housing, meaning that any student of any gender can choose to live with a student of another gender. Now, for students who are just being matched as roommates, we only make same gender matches. But if I wanted to request someone, I identify as a man, if I wanted to request someone specific who is a woman and she wanted to request me back, we do allow that. We have no barrier on that. So that is what we mean when we say that our campus is gender inclusive housing. And that applies throughout the first year residence halls as well as our upper class residents. And if students specifically, the gender inclusive housing policy was put into place specifically to benefit our transgender, non-binary, and genderqueer students. And while, to take advantage of that, they do not need to reach out to us, do not need to set up a meeting. We are always happy to meet with students and talk through those options with them, and they can reach out to our office, and we're happy to do that.
All right, so as far as meal plans, somewhat limited, I think in a good way. It's really, we have one first year meal plan, the Block 304, which first year students are required to have. We've got a really wonderful partnership with Bentley Dining. They've got nutritionists on staff. Jeff and I actually just met our brand new head chef for dining yesterday, who's fantastic. I think has experience in fine dining and also has experience in large venues. I think most recently coming from the Garden down here in Boston. So he's been fantastic, making a bunch of great changes. But really what the Block 304 plan would include, we kind of have two sort of options with or benefits of our housing and our meal plans. So students have swipes, which one swipe will get you into our all-you-can-eat dining hall in the student center called the 921. And then we also have discretionary funding. So $350 of discretionary funding where students can use that. We have some eateries up by our academic buildings, which are not all you can eat. You kind of go, you pick. They've got a pizza place, place to do subs, burger, salads, everything you can think of, more convenience type store stuff. You could buy a bag of chips if that's all you're looking for, pick up a quick salad. I think they've got sushi up there. We also have a burrito place down on our lower portion of campus where students can use discretionary funds, a Starbucks on campus. So that's really where, a declining balance is what they'll use. And then our dining hall is all you can eat. So one swipe gets you in. Stay really as long as you want, eat as much as you want, and then head on out. And then new over the last, 2 years, we've added into our block plans a meal trade. So really what that means is if a student wants to trade in one of their swipes at a discretionary location, they're able to do that. I believe it's 5 times a week. So they could take one of their swipes, they could go to the burrito place on campus, And that's one sort of theoretical swipe would get them a burrito, a bag of chips, a cookie, and a drink. So students have responded really well to that. I think they really like the option of being able to stop, grab something quick that's specific to what they're looking for, and then take it with them so they don't have to stay within the dining hall to eat. So if they're on the run or got a meeting to go to, they can do that. So we have plenty more information if folks are really interested in knowing more and want to head to our Bentley Dining webpage. They've got a ton of new resources. They are actually doing some remodeling of the space right now, adding in a new full service salad bar, which will be new. Some of the staff are actually doing some tastings today, yesterday, and then a few next week of some piloted new options for students. Which were really fantastic. I think students will really be quite pleased when they come back in the fall as far as our all-you-can-eat venues. So there is constantly, we're trying to improve on the food. I've been really impressed with Bentley Dining really over the last year or two, and they've been really taking student feedback and trying to lean into that to provide the best options possible. I get their job is challenging with catering to 3,400 students and their needs, but I will say the staff over there are committed folks who've been really good partners with our office. So happy to answer other questions about that, or again, they have plenty of information on their website as well. And last but not least.
Yes, so one final slide here, and then we will open it up to address some questions. So some important dates in terms of move-in. So as Justin mentioned earlier, the students who are selected to live in defined communities will actually get to move onto campus a day before the rest of the incoming class. So those students in defined communities will move in on Wednesday, September 1st, and then move in for the general new student population is scheduled for Thursday, September 2nd. So while we have those dates available now, more specific information, times, the actual procedures, all of that, we will send out in late July, around the time when we send out housing assignments. Obviously, as much as things in terms of the pandemic have really seemed to be on the up and up lately, the university is still monitoring that, right? We're taking it a day at a time. But we really are optimistic that this fall semester is going to look different than the past year in a very, very good way. So again, specific details will come out in July, later in July. And yeah, I think that's it for these dates.
Yeah, so we'll leave the following slide here up during the Q&A portion. So if folks want to begin sending in any questions that might be top of mind. Again, if we don't get to all of your questions, we apologize. We know we've got some limited time, but again, we've got some fantastic work study students sitting at our front desk this summer who are available to answer questions. We're open 8 to 5:30. If it's a question a little bit beyond one of our first year students, we've got all of our professional staff who are happy to take it. And then if you maybe a more complex question or just something you want to shoot over to us at housing@bentley.edu, we will, give us a day or two, but we'll work hard to get you an answer to whatever is on your mind. But I think we've got a remaining 15 minutes and we'd be happy to take some questions.
So Justin, we have 3 questions so far, and Jeff as well. So the first question is, does Bentley offer a microfridge service that students can rent for their dorm room?
Yes, we do. We actually work with a company called New England Student Services, and they provide microfridge rentals. More information will be sent out about that to students probably sometime in late July or early August. It's a super easy process. You just sign up for it right on their website, and you put in the student's residence hall room, and it will actually be, the fridge will be delivered prior to move-in. So when the student gets here, their fridge will already be in the room, and then New England Student Services will come and remove it once the year is over. So very low hassle, and a great service that we provide, and that'll come out via email.
Okay, next one is, with unlimited swipes into the new 9-to-1, if you use a trade for the week, does that negate your unlimited swipes?
Jeff, do you know the answer? Is it unlimited?
So we used to, years ago, had an unlimited dining plan, but I believe when upon some review of data, the students actually weren't using that many. I mean, clearly no one can use an unlimited number of swipes. So the Block 304 plan, which is the one that first year students are required to be on, is relatively comparable to the unlimited plan in that it offers the largest number of swipes. It's 304, that's why it's named that way. That's why it's the Block 304, 304 swipes per semester, which if you do the breakdown is quite a few per week, more than I think the standard amount for meals. Oh, so that would not negate, because they're not unlimited, that would not negate meal trades.
It would come from the declining balance, but yeah, like Jeff said, we have not had issues with students who have gone hungry or are missing, don't have enough swipes to get into the halls. And again, I think if any student was struggling in terms of being able to secure food, I think we recognize that, food, shelter, safety, those are some of the primary responsibilities of our, the university. So we will come to their aid. So, clue us in. I think one of the biggest ways that parents, families can help students, when they bring a question home to you about something they're struggling with, a great question to ask them is, who have they talked to? I think every year we'll get parents or family members who call and they may be a little upset about, why is their student struggling? And sometimes it's just, and we get it, right? We've all been, many of us have been first year college students. It's scary to ask for help. But help abounds here. There are plenty of staff, as Jeff mentioned, in our structure throughout the orientation program, folks like Aiden and the rest of Aiden and Jill's team with Alex's help. I mean, we've just got such great student support. So I think probably one of the biggest pain points for a lot of the staff and student leaders on campus is when a student goes struggling for too long and hasn't reached out for support. I think sometimes, though scary, that's the first thing to push them to do. Who have you asked for some assistance? Have you talked to your OL? Have you talked to your RA? And typically one of them could point you in the right direction of someone who could get you more assistance.
All right, next question. We had quite a few of these. Do you have any idea when Parents' Weekend will be?
That is a good question. No, but if you folks go to, let's see, I think our Alumni Parents and Friends webpage. So we typically help with some activities, but don't coordinate that event. But I think if they haven't had a save the date out yet, typically likely by move-in, they will have that date established. So stay tuned unless Jill has more info.
I can pop in. It's the weekend of September 17th to September 19th.
Wonderful.
So it's just a save the date at the moment, but you'll be getting more information from that as well.
Okay, and then next question. We live across the country. Can we ship things through Amazon over the summer to Bentley for our daughter's room, or do we just shop when we arrive? Thank you.
So we, students in the past and their families have worked with our mail services department, our mail room, to coordinate some shipments prior to move-in. Not this early in the summer, right? But as move-in gets closer, they can certainly work with you on that, but you would need to reach out directly to our mail services team. Their information is on Bentley's website, and I know they're always happy to work with students and families on that. But also, if you do want to shop when you get to the area, within a 20-minute drive, you can get to, Target. We have a shopping mall about 20 minutes away. A lot of great shopping options in the area.
Perfect. And then, how would you all distinguish among the 3 dorms? Do they have personalities?
That's a great question. Yeah, I think we get that question every year, and I might even be curious what Aiden thinks. I think from a staff perspective, I can chime in and say, I think Trees tends to be a little bit more busy. You've got half of the first year class. My first job when I started at Bentley about 9 or 10 years ago, I ran the Trees for my first 2 years here. And to be honest, it was probably one of my favorite experiences. So I oversaw the building, the RA staff. It was lively, it was fun. I don't think that it was any more wild than a Slade or a Miller. But naturally, I think when you cut out 250 students, the vibe of the building might, tame out a little bit. I think, Slade and Miller, because they have almost half of each community are now our defined communities. So Slade, we've got an entire floor dedicated to the honors program. I think those communities can be a little unique in that you've got some students that are just looking to live on a typical floor, and then you've got some thematic living. So I think the programming in those buildings can be a little bit interesting and intriguing for students who live there. Miller is the closest to a lot of the academic buildings. I mean, we're a small campus, so close is relative, but I don't know, Aiden, if you have any thoughts on that one.
Yeah, absolutely. Happy to jump in. So from my freshman year experience, Miller Hall was further from the other two freshman dorms. So I felt that Miller provided a smaller community, less people moving in and out of the halls, but that certainly doesn't mean that students in Miller are isolated. Small campus. The furthest that you're going to walk to see other students is maybe 5 minutes. I think Justin hit the nail on the head with trees, in that just by the nature of the trees dorms having a large amount of our first year students there, it usually ends up being the place where people meet up, where things happen, where friends come together. And I feel that Slade is kind of a good mesh between Miller and Trees, in that it's close to the Trees dorm, it's close to where a lot of our new students are, but like Miller, it's a smaller building with less people going in and out. And to the specific character of each building, I feel like that's really made up by the students that live on each floor. The communities are really floor-based rather than building-based, based on my own experience. And I wouldn't, if you end up in Miller, you end up in Slade, I wouldn't feel that, oh no, I'm in this community or I have this sort of expectation. It really is the people that live in each building, and it changes from year to year.
Yeah, I have a cool story of, I think maybe a few years back, I gave one of our, we onboarded a new board of trustee member, and I gave her a tour of the trees. So about 20 years prior, she had done her first year experience in the trees, and it was pretty surreal. So she was walking around noting what had changed since her time on campus, and she was actually pointing at doors throughout the hall and saying, that was my maid of honor, that was my bridesmaid, that was my bridesmaid. And I think it just really showed the sort of magic of Bentley's campus being the size that we are. And if you really are going to put yourself out there, and we encourage you to tell, your students coming to do that, I think truly it is magic in terms of what can happen and the relationships folks can build that really do last a lifetime. So yeah, I think that opportunity exists in really all the halls.
Perfect. So this is focused towards transfer students. How could they connect with like-minded or similar experiences students? Is there a Facebook page for transfer students?
So I will start by mentioning that I know our presentation really focused on incoming first-year students in terms of the housing options. So first of all, incoming transfer students will actually, because they are upperclassmen students, they will be living in our suite and apartment style housing. And so they actually have a separate housing application that asks them to preference all of that. In terms of a Facebook page or an opportunity for connection, I'm not sure. Justin, do you know?
I'm not sure about a Facebook page. I know that we've got within the orientation leader group and within the RA group a number of student leaders that we've hired for the roles specific to their experience as transfer students. And so I would say, if your student is attending in the fall, I would say to take advantage of some of those resources. We've hired a lot of transfer students for these roles specific to the fact that they get what it's like to transition out of one school and then, start, as a sophomore at Bentley. I think that's really commonplace. And we've got a lot of people we would love to connect them with. So if they're vocal and they let us know, like, can you find me another transfer student? We'll find them one. I don't know if Jill has more perspective on the OL front.
Yeah, kind of just jumping off what you're saying. We try to group the transfer students together into their orientation group so that they have a chance to connect with others. And like Justin was saying, we try to incorporate an orientation leader who might have been a transfer student themselves as well. So really building those connections during the orientation process. That's really built into that process as well.
Sorry, I was answering some questions that I could just type in the chat.
Thank you.
Yeah, this question is, if you're accepted into the honors program, what is the chance of living in Slade?
That's a good question. So I think the honors program ranges every year between maybe like 70 first year students to maybe 120 or 130. We have a little over 50 spaces within the honors community to accommodate. So, you know, again, it's typically dependent upon how large the honors class is. But again, I'll tell you, I think if folks are able to get there, great. I think if you don't, we have a large chunk of honors students who again know that they already will have built-in community within the honors program. So it's kind of a little double dipping. So they'll say, maybe I want to live in trees, or I'd love to live outside of the honors community because I already know I have that. And I'd love to develop a whole nother, you know, group of friends or a different roommate. So we're doing our best. I think in the future, we're thinking about how we might be able to grow the community. But for now, we've hired our staff, specifically our student staff, to be RAs who have been within the honors program, who can help support that. I think it's one additional benefit, but I know the honors program does so much to support students outside of the residence halls in terms of programming and academic advising and support. So I truly mean it. They're not missing out on a million things if they don't end up on the honors floor.
Perfect. And then on move-in day, will there be Bentley staff to help students with the physical part of moving items from their cars into the dorms using big rolling bins?
So we actually hire like a moving crew to come in and assist with that. So it's not actually Bentley staff doing it, but we do bring in folks who make that process really quick and really easy. I am astonished at how quickly, you know, you get your things out of the car, and then they, you know, you have it labeled with what room it's going to, and they whisk it away, and you go up and it's in the room. So it's a great process, saves a lot of time. And then I will also note that that is only for the incoming students. So in future years, when you return as a returning student, that is not something that we're able to provide in such a spread out format for our returning students, but for incoming students, it's wonderful, and it takes a lot of pressure off of the day, and it keeps the flow of traffic moving incredibly quickly as well.
So this is a question about COVID protocols. Does Bentley provide regular testing for every student? And if I had to guess, maybe they're talking about the upcoming fall semester.
Yeah, so Jeff alluded to that a little bit at the beginning of the presentation. So our COVID protocols have changed pretty significantly. We're still in the process of sort of watching the data, particularly, you know, around the vaccination rates, how many folks are getting it. I know we've put out a mandate for students that we are asking all incoming students to have the vaccine. So more decisions to come. We would imagine that likely there'll be some onboarding testing, at least as students are arriving to campus, but though it hasn't been officially decided yet, you know, really our goal would be to kind of phase out testing in the fall, knowing that the majority of campus will be vaccinated. But we will likely still do a little bit with it as far as an onboarding perspective, just to be sure. We've identified things called breakthrough cases where, you know, even if somebody is vaccinated, very, very rarely there's a potential they could have COVID. Again, once you're vaccinated, it's pretty hard to spread it to other individuals, but we'd like to be able to identify those folks, if any, at move-in to help support. But I will say, as one of the staff, along with, I know, Alex and Jeff, who worked with contact tracing and relocation this past year, I can say wholeheartedly our goal is to do very little with COVID once we are assured that really the majority of campus is vaccinated in the fall. We'd like to get students as much of a return to normal as possible we know that a lot of first-year students last year, it was hard. And for a lot of the incoming students, I can only imagine how challenging it was to finish out, a senior year during COVID. So we want to try and normalize the college experience in the fall as safely as we can. That's really what we're committed to.
And then Justin, just one last question, which you touched on. Will the COVID vaccine be required for the fall?
Yes, yep, it has been. So I know we've sent some information out about that. We have a Back to Bentley page that you can find right on the main bentley.edu webpage, but we'll go over in more depth some of our protocols. We're accepting really of all the major vaccines, Johnson & Johnson, Moderna, Pfizer. So it will be required. I think that'll be our one key to being able to return to, a normal campus living environment to keep students as safe as possible. So yeah, we did decide on that for the safety of the community, and that, and we've surveyed our staff and faculty as well, and it looks like the majority of them have opted into the vaccination process as well. So we feel really, really good, really positive about what's to come in the fall.
And then just one more, I know it's 6:31. Is a shuttle available for students to get to the store or other places?
Yes, we do have a shuttle that gets folks to Waverly Square, which is a shopping area. And it also has the opportunity in Waverly Square, you can catch a bus, I think, for a typical fare, maybe $1.75, and that bus will take you straight into Harvard Square. So if you're looking for more of the social opportunities or to catch the T into Boston, you could do that. But if you're just looking to get into Waverly, they've got grocery stores, places to get haircuts, things like that. So I know this past year we were a bit limited in being able to run that all the time, but it does look like our emphasis on returning to some sense of normalcy in the fall, we'll get back to that as well.
I will also quickly add so that we do have the shuttle that will take you off campus, but we have another shuttle that runs solely on a loop within campus between a couple stops on our main campus, our lower campus, which is to the south across Beaver Street, and then to our north campus, which is about half a mile up Forest Street. So there is a shuttle that just does an internal loop as well.
Awesome. Well, I want to thank my colleagues from the Residential Center, as well as thank all of the Bentley families and students who joined us on this call this evening. It was a pleasure to have the opportunity to connect with you all, and we're looking forward to connecting with you more throughout the summer. Our next Falcon Live Chat will be held on July 7th, and we'll cover topics on equity and inclusion here at Bentley. So if you're interested in taking part in that live chat, please register ahead of time so that we can provide you with the proper link. And then as a reminder, this session was recorded and we will be uploading it to our YouTube channel for you to refer back to. And if we didn't get to one of your questions, or if you think of something else, you can always email either housing@bentley.edu, which is on the screen right now, or orientation@bentley.edu as well, and we'll get those questions answered for you. So thank you so much, and have a wonderful rest of your evening.